Hi everyone, Darren Hunter here. Before we get into our podcast, just want to do a quick shout out for Inspection Manager. What an amazing inspection app platform that they have. And they're really excited at the moment with their tenant assisted routine inspections, where your tenants, in the convenience of their own time frame and in the convenience of their rental property, they can be getting you through the app inspections, their own inspection or their own photos that they've done. Now, this is going to help you, particularly if you're in lockdown. But what we've also found as businesses have come out of lockdown, they've found that perhaps they can do maybe one or even two of these inspections a year, aside from scheduling their normal routine inspections. The next step, really go and have a demo, have a look for yourself and make a decision where this could actually work for you too. So go to inspectionmanager.com, request a demo and check it out.
Hi everyone, it's Deniz Yusuf here from Inspired Growth Training, and I've also got Darren Hunter with me, and we are the BDM Coach podcast show here today. Darren, this is an amazing topic. I love the topic that you've come up with, this one, right? And it's been great. We don't normally have you on the BDM Coach podcast show, but we've been bringing you back in because you've got so much to give. Now, the reason why I like this topic is because I didn't pick up every single property. There was properties that, my team was like, no, Dennis, you can't list in that street, and we'll share about that as we go through this podcast. But Darren, 8 reasons. You come up with 8 reasons, Darren.
Well, 8 reasons where you should say no to new business. Now, already for a lot of business owners, it's probably already sounding like blasphemy. And
because I can see the sales agents going, no.
No, because you got to understand, Dennis, it's all good and well for a BDM to go, we need 50 roofs and front doors this month. But if they're not managing them and they're giving it to a team and it's got toxic business, toxic owners, bad quality, all of that, it's going to make everyone sick. Yeah. So we've got to, in this day and age, Dennis, we've got such a staffing crisis out there, so much burnout, so much hurt, so much pain going on. And it's getting harder and harder, near impossible now to get quality property managers, and them working in a toxic environment. Another, one-liners, I'm going to give a lot of my well-proven one-liners today. Why have your staff living in an atmosphere that's like Mars? You want a place that's fit for human habitation. You want a place where your property managers want to come in on a Monday, they're happy to work there and stay with you for a long time. If you want that, you need to have a quality rent roll. And a quality rent roll means you need to know when to say no to new business, because it's only going to hurt your business, your team, your people, your bottom line, everything. And so I think a lot of business owners, Dennis, are waking up to the fact they just can't take on crap. You just can't take on everything. And so I'm going to give everyone rules today that they can go by. So when they're looking at a new property, if it fits this 8 criteria, then you can say yes. But if it doesn't, then you've got to be happy to say no and let your competitors manage it, because you know that it's going to bring some level of pain to your profitability, or to your team, to your culture, to the time of your team, all of those sorts of things. So just getting started, one of the analogies I do in my training, Dennis, is giving the analogy of just imagine right now a big container, like a water cooler. Yep. A water container of the most beautiful, pristine water, really good drinking water, quality. We were in Bali a couple of weeks ago and we knew the value of quality water, didn't we? And we drink bottled water. We couldn't drink the stuff out the tap, otherwise it will make us sick. We know the value of quality water. And I guess my analogy is, can you imagine a business that was healthy? It was clean. The water was just something that everyone is happy to drink from. And so that water, that clean, pure water, is an analogy for a clean, crisp, squeaky clean, quality, profitable rent roll. And there are such a thing. But let's change the dynamics a little bit, Dennis. And let's go and get a handful of mud and throw it in there. And let's just stir it up a bit. And, do you reckon the color's going to change pretty quickly? I don't think we're going to be able to see it through anymore. And you got those little rocks that just fall to the bottom. And then, of course, the water is going to go a dark shade of brown. And let's go get some floor cleaner and throw it in. Let's go and put some other chemicals in there. Let's go and put some sewage water in there, Deniz. Let's mix it up.
The thing is about real estate, Darren, is you're talking about different chemicals and elements to add to it. That's right. What happens.
Now, 80% of that container is probably still water.
Yeah.
But what about that 20% now has contaminated it? And so it's gone through the whole batch, the whole cooler of water. But now what if we then take that container, Deniz, and pass it around for all the staff to drink?
Wow.
And that's what they're living in 40 hours a week and drinking and consuming. No wonder why they're stressed, they're burnt out, and they're sick, and they leave, and you just think that's normal. So moving on, everyone, let's create a workplace that's fit for human habitation. And Deniz, I remember you driving me around in Nowra, looking at the streets that start with Q.
The 3 Qs, Darren.
Yeah. So let's just that was in Nowra, and so let's just start off. I've given you a list of 8, Deniz, but we don't have to stick to the order there. But the location of your properties. There are some locations that you shouldn't be managing in. Now, just for our American viewers, I get it. You've got some discrimination laws, and we don't have those discrimination laws here. We can say, look, we're not, we don't manage in a lower socio-economic area, or but what's your area like? If you're in a city, you've probably got some suburbs that you may choose not to manage in. If you're in a regional town, it may be certain streets like Deniz that you may just wish to avoid, because you've got low rents anyway. But if they're attracting that lower socio-economic type tenant, up goes your problems, up goes the time to manage them, up goes the issues, down goes the rent, and it compounds the issues and the problems, and it causes a lot of pain. Now, I get property managers at this point saying, well, what if all of my properties are in lower socio-economic areas? And I've managed rent rolls like that too. And yet in any slice, like, for example, the northern suburbs of Adelaide, there are, lower socio suburbs worse than others. And, out of those, you can find the good ones. You just pick your properties very carefully, but you can still navigate your way around, those, if that's all you've got. Certainly the location of properties is very important. When considering, and if it's in an area where a good tenant doesn't want to live, then why do you want to manage it? And I think, Deniz, that's a really good question for everybody. If you're taking on a new property and a good tenant will likely not rent it, why would you do it?
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of factors that people are going to look at there too, Darren. Those properties, they sit vacant for a longer period of time. And when a property is vacant, it creates more pressure on that landlord. That landlord they're at their peak of stress, and they're then adding pressure to the company saying, why haven't you leased it? Why haven't you leased it? Right? Which is then adding to extra strain within your company. Now, the reason why you have a filter is because you're really strict on who you're allowing to go into those properties. So your average days on market increases, and you're not collecting income for the property, but you're processing applications, you're doing viewings, you're answering calls to those owners that are, wanting their properties. And that's like that example that you gave. It's adding liquid, all those compounds into that crystal clear water, and you're not earning money. Yeah, and that's
correct.
When it's vacant.
So that's number one, location. So you consider, are there certain locations in your marketplace you shouldn't be managing because it's going to hurt you, your team, your profit margin? Okay, so moving on to the next one is distance, long distance. Now, if you're traveling more than 30 minutes drive to get to the property, why? And I've heard some horror stories, Deniz, of people taking on properties 3 or 4 hours away in another town, simply because they want to grow. It's bad business. Or you might get, well, I've got 3 properties in that area. Well, so okay, you might do your routine inspections at the same time, but are all those properties going to come vacant at the same time? Are you going to be leasing them at the same time? No. So now your economies of distance are going to go out the window, and it's not a good business decision. But Dennis, I like this analogy, and I showed it at the Bali Leaders Retreat. Is, take a quality property manager and ask them to come out to the car park or to the parking lot, as Americans call, and sit on a chair for 2 hours for mental health, 2 hours a day. And all they can do is make and take some calls on their phone. Well, they're not going to feel very relaxed after a week, because we've taken 10 hours of their week to sit on a chair. And the property manager will pull you aside and say, what are you doing? You're not giving me mental health. You're giving me mental stress and anxiety because I can't get my work done. But Dennis, when we don't have distance criteria involved of what we say yes to and what we say no to, there are some offices and some businesses where property managers are spending 2 hours a day sitting on a chair in a car. And they can't manage property. They can make and take some calls, but they don't realize they're so stressed out. They're so busy because they're doing all this driving. They're not effectively managing. They're managing part-time on a full-time rent roll. That's called stress. So we've got to be careful, people, on location and with distance. So I like to have a guide of, more than 30 minutes. You've got a question. And there might be some that you just feel that you absolutely have to do because you've got an owner with 2 properties here and you've got one, 40 minutes drive away. Well, you just got to make the right business decision. You might have to charge a bit more. I don't know. You've got to be careful of these long distance properties.
Yeah. And look, where I live, Darren, 40 minutes, that was 40 kilometers, for me, so that's a long distance. That's 80 kilometers there and back. So, fuel costs, etc., and the wear and tear on the vehicles, not just about, time away. If you're 30 minutes, if it's a 30-minute drive, and that's because of traffic build up, whatever the case, if you're doing other, you've got a lot of other properties in between that range, in that sphere, that circle, that's fine. But if it's one property that's, 30 to 40 minutes away, I think that's really pushing the limit. Darren, I was training some agencies in New Zealand. It was 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, and I didn't understand it, but they wanted to focus their growth in that area. Then they were going to employ someone. So if you've got a backstory to that, and if there's a solid reasoning behind it, that's fine. But have you got to write the number down before you put someone on, and then put some energy into that area?
Yeah. All right. So we've talked about location, talked about distance. The next criteria you need to have is around the actual type of property. So for example, Dennis, the first day on my job as a property manager, right back in 1989, I remember it was an 11 a.m. appointment. I even forgot the keys. And it was a place in Adelaide called Noblet Street in Findon. And Adelaide property managers listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's 4 blocks of altogether about 120 units or doors. A lower socio, there was even rumors I heard of property managers who had been raped their years before, right back in 1999. Low rent, low socio, really bad. And that type of property is only going to bring a certain type of tenant. It's only going to bring a low end type of rent. It's just not a quality type of business that you want to have. And also here in South Australia, we've got what we call semis, which are ex-government housing properties, are only going to attract a certain type of tenant. So if you can look at a property, whether it's a flat or a unit or might even be a condo, depending on where you are, and go, hang on, that's not going to get me a good result, because typically the type of tenant that's going to rent that is going to be not what we really want, or it could be too low a rent. Now, you might actually, Dennis, you might have an executive apartment block where only an executive couple or a single person wants to rent, high rents, low touch time. It's all good. That type of property is great. Green light to that. But there are certain types of property that you've got to avoid. All righty. So in that example there, It's the structure, the look, the feel, what type of tenant is going to be magnetized to that property. And if that typical type of tenant isn't good for your business, then you've got to really rethink, do you need to take it on? Because you're just adding another handful of toxic bit by bit that can cause problems. Because Dennis, it's not the miles that kill you in property management. It's all those dozens and dozens and dozens of little centimeters and all those little areas of compromise that then create a situation where we're all burnt out, we're all stressed, but we really can't put our finger on it because there's a lot of different things that went wrong along the way.
Yeah, Darren, those particular blocks that you're referring to in my town in Nowra, most of the time it was one owner that owned them all as well. And they were even more difficult to add to that scenario as well.
Yeah, difficult landlord, difficult expectations and all those sorts of things. So let's move on. So now we've got location strategy, when you should say no, distance, when you should say no, property type, when you say no. The next one's a no-brainer, property quality. So if an owner has got a property and it's not in a good state of repair or a reasonable state of repair as your bare minimum, look, we're in rentals. We get it. There are some properties that aren't pristine. We know that. That's called bread and butter. But, if a good tenant, again, doesn't want to live there and only a bad tenant's going to take it, and it's ratty, it hasn't been looked after, it's in poor quality, why? And Dennis, what about every now and again as a BDM, you've got a salesperson that's come to you and said, well, we've got a developer here. He's bought 2 pieces of crap and he's going to sit on it until the economy's good. And then they're going to bulldoze it and then they're going to rebuild on it. And until then, here are the keys, property managers. Now you've got to babysit them. That's hard because you feel you've got to take one for the team. And I get it, but there still has to be a minimum standard that has to be reached. So, not all these things are cut and dry. I get that, but we've got to be careful about not taking on something that is of poor quality.
Yeah.
All right. So that's number 4, poor quality, or just, you want something reasonable to good standard and an owner that's willing to fix it. All righty. Okay. The next one is what I call avoiding the toxic landlord. So there's others are very property centric or distance centric. This is now personality centric. And these are the owners, Dennis, that are really, really tight. These are the ones, and it's easy to understand why we have problems with these is because if we value the tenant, we value a good tenant, we value getting repairs done quickly, they value it too. There's all these things that we value, but if we take on clients that don't share those values, then we're stepping into problems. We're stepping into conflict. And if we take on C-class landlords, well, they're in breach of our values. They've got different values and they are motivated by different things like how much money they retain, not willing to invest it into the property. And so very quickly, 7 criteria that makes up a C-class landlord or a toxic landlord or a C-class property owner is number 1, they're very unreasonable and over-demanding, and you just can't please them. You call them up with good news and they pee all over your parade and make you feel like crap. They take up so much of your time and they send you copious lengthy emails and frivolous requests and just very difficult and just really soak up your time. Number 3 out of the 7 is whatever the rents is, well, they just want more. They're not interested in market rent because market rent or just below market rent is going to get that nice sweet spot. Quality tenants is what we want. But if it's over rented, well, quality tenants aren't dumb. Good tenants aren't dumb. They know, looking at realestate.com, they know what the market is and they see it's overpriced. You're going to have crickets, or the only people are the bad tenants. And so we don't want owners that, despite our advice and what we tell them, to then still have properties over rented.
I mean, you're the expert. You should be educating them, right?
Correct.
It should be the other way around.
But if they're not interested in being educated, listen up. You might have a toxic owner. All right, next one is whatever your fees are, they just have a propensity to want less. They want less management fee. They go on about your fees and complaining a lot. And you could have that money-centric owner that is just all about not wanting peace of mind and who they're going to manage it, but their peace of mind comes with how much money they can save. And so that's the difference, everybody. You want to deal with owners that just want peace of mind and you to look after their property so they don't have to think about it. But there are some owners that aren't motivated by that. They're motivated by how much they can screw out of you, how much they don't want you to earn, how much of a slave you're going to be to them, and so forth. So just be aware of that. All right, the next one. So we've talked about over demanding and unreasonable. We've talked about taking too much of your time, over rented properties, or wanting too much rent. They're very fee orientated. Now, the next one is they put little to no money into the property. So that can also relate to number 4, where we talked about property quality. You could have one of them. Yeah. And so you want someone that's willing to put that money into the property, invest in the property, keep it at a good quality level. They're not going to argue with you with serious issues of smoke alarms being fixed and all those sorts of things. And if they are arguing with you on safety issues and feel that they don't want to do that, well, that's a big red flag warning sign. So, all right, next one is they tend to have a crap property that just attracts a crap tenant. And number 7 is they tend to have a low rent property too. So they're the 7 things that makes up a toxic owner or a toxic landlord. And Deniz, what can I say? They're like a packet of cigarettes, and they'll take years off your life and the life of your staff. And then these are the big issues why they burn out.
Darren, I actually had an owner that, it'd be nice if we could do a psychological analysis on every owner when we bring them in. And it is important that, I had one, your last point most of the time is they're going to have that crappy property. Well, I actually had one that met all 6 of your criteria, right? But they had the best property in this suburb, in a prominent suburb in the Shoalhaven called Camberwarra. And
question, Deniz, how did the tenancy turn out? How did it turn out?
Well, let me finish the story, because we didn't even get tenants in the property, right? So we signed the property up. I got all the advertising done. They actually did agree to the professional photography, because there was a good BDM that worked there and upsold the benefits of professional photography. So that they did have professional photography, but the owner kept on turning down the application. I'm talking prominent area, only top quality people are going to be applying. And they kept on finding they would approve, and the next day they would ring up and say, we changed their mind. They'd have an email. Why? So I actually had to ring them up and say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, see that 30-day agreement where you've got to terminate the agreement with us. Well, that's actually 30 days for us. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to waive that 30 days and you can come pick your files up, because we're obviously not the right managing agent for you. So I recognised it, but the work and the stress that put on our leasing agent, she was going to have my head for picking up that property. She didn't care. It was the best property in the street in the suburb.
Yeah, I've learned that too. I've had really good quality, brand new properties and a very bad owner, enough to scare off the tenant. And you can have a great owner and an average property, and you'll be fine. But you could have a bad owner and a quality property, and even a quality tenant I've seen, and the whole thing was just going to fall over. So, you want to get owners that are going to be in alignment with your values. One of the quotes of my good friend Kevin Hodges says, they are in the accommodation business. It is a business thing. You've got to remove your emotions out of it, and you've got to act like you're in the accommodation business. So, we are in the accommodation business, and they are partners. Your owners are partners in the process. Tenants are partners in that process to then make sure good business happens in that accommodation business. A bit like the hotel group we did yesterday, Deniz. That's the accommodation business.
Yep, certainly is. And
we love it. And we work in property. So, all right. So we've talked again. This is a quick summary, but being careful with the distance. Be careful about the location of those streets and suburbs and things like that. We've talked about property type, the property quality. We talked about C-class landlords. The next one, Deniz, the F word. The F word. Furniture. Now, you thought I was going to say something else, right? But the furniture. You say, if you're in holiday accommodation, you need furniture. If you need student accommodation, you need furniture. If you're, you're in short-term Airbnb, you need furniture. But if you're in long-term traditional property management, why do you need furniture? If you're out in the suburbs, why do you need furniture? Oh, well, Darren, the owner, he's moving away to the UK for 2 years and he's asking us to rent it out. And, crockery, cutlery, toasters, sheets, bedding, quilts, forks, knives, spoons, nightmare. And Dennis, in the latter years of my property management career, I would get a call from owners like this, and I'll walk into the property and it says, well, you should be able to get such and such a rent for it, but I can't do it for you. Because there's just too many problems. Dennis, we get a dent in the fridge. There's a dent in the fridge. Moving out. The owner now wants a new fridge. Tenant saying no. Conflict. Going to try. You see, it just snowballs. I've seen checks written for missing microwave ovens where when I was managing property managers, the thing's just going missing because inspecting furniture shouldn't simply be something that was an add-on of what we do. Beds, Dennis, and furniture, bed bugs. Oh my goodness, we had a discussion about that yesterday. There is so much litigation and issues around beds and hygiene. There's every reason why, if you want to stack up all the reasons why you shouldn't do furnished properties with the context that I spoke about, and why you should do it, I think the list of why you shouldn't do it completely overshadows the pluses, and why make it more difficult for you. All right. Now, okay, if you're in that special type of short-term accommodation where that's required, well, that's not traditional property management. All right. But you're getting my point. Let's just be careful about the F word. So, all right, Dennis, we got 2 more to talk about. The next one is rent. Minimum rent before you say no, because we need to be careful on the types of property we're managing, because once it hits a certain rent threshold and goes below that, then we could be getting into those low-end, low socio type properties. And Dennis, people are more focused about getting their 8%, the 7%, the 6%, but they ignore the overall money. What are we actually earning for that property? Because this leads on now to part 8. Criteria number 8 is, what's the contract value of that property you've brought in? What's it going to bring in minimum of the next 12 months? Because in the sales department, a salesperson goes out, signs up an $800,000 listing and comes back and he's not thinking, whoa, I just signed up an $800,000 listing. Or they're not running around the office ringing the bell going, wow, I just did a 2% commission, ding, 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 ding. No, this is going to bring in 15 grand minimum.
But Darren, imagine if, you weren't looking at that annual revenue that's bringing in, and it was also in an area that was so far away. So it's a double-edged sword. They're making the mistake in 2 different areas.
And Dennis, I've seen people take on a property an hour's drive away, a low rent property. The owner screwed them down on fees, and it's just bad. And they're getting a third commission or income from that property, what they do the one down the street. Wow. And it's just dumb. And this is where it all hits the wall, Dennis. It all results in high staff turnover, in property managers that don't want to work for you anymore. You'll just go and employ another one. Well, good luck. Toxic workplace, lots of problems, issues. A lot of our time just taken up putting out fires, dealing with social problems, and exhaustion. And this is what toxic looks like. It does your head in. And if property management's difficult enough, don't make it more difficult. So Dennis, getting back to the contract value, what's the minimum we're going to earn? We've got to look at, and I encourage everybody, if you're not earning $3,000 per property per year minimum, you need to email me, Darren at igtmail.com, or just contact inspiredgrowthtraining.com.au. Book into my diary. I'll be happy to have a look at your situation, but you should be earning a minimum $2,500 to $3,000 a year in fee revenue. That's all management fees, leasing fees, other fees added on, $3 grand a year. If you're not, you need to speak to me, because what are you in property management for? When you get to that one property manager, it's at 100, 120 properties, you want to be able to easily employ another person. not struggle and go, oh my goodness, how am I going to justify this financially? Because I'm not going to be able to, pay management or pay my salary or anything like that. Well, this is where you get into trouble with this sort of thing. So you want to be able to easily be able to re-employ when you need to, because your quality fees are there. And so, Deniz, we need to be looking at, okay, this property here, if I've got a tenant moving out every 2 years, I know in the next year, take on with the leasing fee, I'll just account half of that for this year and half of that for next year. And this year, I should be able to, with this rent and this management fee and all these other predictable fees, we should be able to do a minimum $2,800, minimum $3,000 in fee income. Yes, we're happy that now fits our criteria. And Mr. Smith, welcome on board. We're happy to do business with you. And because it fits our criteria now, we're happy to reveal to you what our fees are. So, Deniz, when owners now call up and say, what are your fees?
Well, that adds another element, doesn't it?
We're not able to reveal our fees, Mr. Smith, until we're able to meet you, see your property. It fits our criteria. Otherwise, because we can't do business with everyone. And just a couple more things I want to add to it. These are a couple little add-ons I can put to that list is, be careful about not taking on other people's evictions. There's so many problems with that. If you feel that you have to take on a mess that the owner you're going to save him out of, well, consider charging a 3 times management fee, 3 times higher management fee just for that time period until you can get the tenant out, making sure you get paid, or you charge them a fixed rate, because you shouldn't be doing it simply to grow. You've got to be paid for your time and all the stress that's going to come with it. And Deniz, the next one that I like people to avoid is just to avoiding the letting onlys.
Darren, I can argue on this one, right?
I know as a BDM you can, but I'm coming from a property manager point of view.
Totally. So, and when I say I argue, all I want to do is bring to the point that IGT members have got access to our training where we have got a strategy in converting those let-onlys, casual lets into full-time management. But the point that you're bringing up is don't take on those let-onlys and then give it back to the owner. Because you're all you're doing is finding a tenant. You can bring in some revenue, I get short term, but you're really talking about the just picking up and letting go.
Yeah, correct. And finding them a quality tenant when you could be putting that quality tenant into one of your properties. But here is the main reason, Deniz, is that, okay, they tend to be self-managing landlords that just need help with the leasing side of things, right? Aside from having a problem with that, but also for the fact that, okay, the owner, you give them a good tenant, but that tenant runs into trouble with their rent. Now, if you were managing them at 2 days behind, you'd be all over it like white on rice, right? Straight on to paying early intervention. Because at early intervention, we can save this, we can put it back on track, we can get the tenant straight, we can get this rent bang, everything's cool. But the owner may not have your early intervention technique with late rent and will start chasing at 3 weeks behind. But it may be too late by then. And then, unfortunately, push comes to shove, that tenant ends up getting evicted with that self-managing landlord, the good tenant that you gave him, but you could have saved it. But now that owner thinks not only did they have a bad tenant, but they had a bad agent. Can you see the problem there, Deniz? That's we've got to be careful around this letting only. Property managers go, well, they might come back to us or we can convert it. Well, good luck. I do see, I know, Deniz, you got some great strategies around this, but let's not get that excited about this type of business. If you honestly think it's going to convert, do it. But otherwise, these are the things that keeps the water cooler clean. All right. This list of 8 things plus 2 is to keep that clean, keep an environment there where people want to work in. It's low burnout, because there is no burnout. There's a low burnout, high burnout. High burnout just hurts everybody. It hurts the staff turnover rates. It hurts your reputation. It hurts customer service. You just bleed properties. It's all bad. And you want to have that quality. So I just encourage everyone, if you want those 8 things on a Word doc, I've got one. Just email me, Darren@igtmail.com. and ask for the 8 reasons when you should say no. And I'll give that. You can just type over it, make it your policy, and have that. And every time you're looking at a new property, does it fit that criteria? You know what to say now when people call out, oh, what are your fees? Well, we're not able to reveal our fees until we actually can make sure that, you know, we're going to be on the same page, and I need to meet you. I need to see the property. There's some criteria.
And you know, it is a good script that you can say when someone rings up. You know, there's other scripts that you can come back with, but you know, when you do know the area and the street they're coming from, it's certainly something that I would be sticking to. I would be saying that you know, and another way of doing that, Darren, is saying, you know, we first have to do an assessment of your property and a report to see if it meets the standards of our company for us to be able to take over. And if, you know, if you're worried about that discrimination, that's where you can say, you know, we need to do a test to make sure that it's meeting all safety standards and minimum requirements for our, you know, for IDT Realty to be able to manage the property. Darren, really good points, great tips. I mean, I can only imagine how many properties I would have listed if I did take on all the properties. There were times I was dealing with investors, and I would say if you were to purchase this property, you know, Integrity Real Estate wouldn't be able to manage it, you know, and then they would ask why, and then I'd explain it, and they would go, wow, that's really good advice. I didn't know that, because salespeople do a really good job of selling properties, but they don't know the statistics and data around the rentals. And that's why it's really important that these 8 things are in the back of the mind of property managers when taking on properties.
That's it. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I've really enjoyed that. As this is teaching, I've been teaching for years, you know, around, you know, and Deniz, we just want people to stop doing property management. We want you to run from it. We want you to flee from it. We want you to not do it again and start doing profitable, quality property management. There is a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, you brought up some scripts, you know, and, you know, where can people get more scripts and dialogues to help them, Darren, win more business? I mean, there's the PM Lead Secrets book, which teaches them how to grow their rent roll. But is there something else, you know, if anyone wants information?
Firstly, everyone, of course, Deniz's book, pmleadsecrets.com. Just get his book there, just pay shipping. But we've also put out the PM Fee Scripts, secrets.com. Go there, just pay shipping, and that's 50 plus scripts on there on how to overcome any fee objection that's ever going to come your way, so you can walk away and win your fees with confidence and leave your cheaper competitors empty-handed.
And that's brilliant. And both books are so valuable. Not only did Darren copy the name of my book, but he also copied the cover. Right.
It's our backs anyway, but yeah, get your hands on the books. You know, Deniz, we're getting a lot of traction. A lot of people around the world are ordering those books there. We've actually placed over 2,000 now, alrighty, in 7 countries, actually probably 8, including Mexico. So
yeah, yep.
They're getting into all sorts of places now, and people they're changing their businesses. They read it, they implement and put into place what we're teaching of our best expertise in those books. People are really growing.
Darren, we've got one of the top BDMs in Australia only just shared with us. We just did a recording for our new series, the Expert Series, that we recorded for our Inspired Growth training members. And they said they used one of your scripts, right, to help them win a management. And they literally just got that email as we're doing the agreement. And then Joe, another you know, amazing top real estate agent, well known in Australia, was saying that they had you out, they had your book out, and they were sharing it in their property management meeting. So
well,
that's, you know,
I'm getting business owners ringing, you know, they order the book and then they send a message back, hey, look, I want one for everyone on my team, and they're ordering 10, 25, 5, you know, and we're just shipping out. And I had to do another order, Deniz. Within 10 weeks, I was sold out. So we have to order another 3,000. They're actually a week away now.
awesome.
Ready. So there's going to be plenty to get around. But anyway, thank you, everyone. And Deniz, I think we're done.
Yeah, well done. An amazing podcast recording we've just done again, Darren. For
another one, and we've got plenty more to come. I've still got plenty of material to go through.
Yeah, lots to do, lots to cover. I mean, we could both stand in a room for hours and just and problem solve. So if anyone's got some topics that they would like us to cover, you know, we're certainly very capable of being able to do that as well. But thank you, Darren. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Take care.